A good dawning to you all, whomever may be out there. The Great Unknown. The Great Unknown. It's a good name for it. You guys should keep that one. I like it. When last we spoke, or I spoke, the last time I soapboxed at length on this particular subject, I was rather dismayed at a great many things that I found. If you saw the first few installments, if you were patient enough, I suppose, to sit through it, I was flummoxed by a great many things. I believe I've come to a conclusion on certain aspects of it. And of course, with this sort of stuff, one question just leads to more questions. And it is not with a great feeling of accomplishment, or really no good feelings at all. I don't tell you this to champion my discovery. It's not a conclusion that I believe anyone here wants to hear. It's not a conclusion that's easy to believe, and it's not a conclusion that I'm happy with. The only reason I even feel comfortable enough to even speak on this, or point this out on any somewhat of a public forum, regardless of how small the audience, is the same reason when I want my guitar fixed, take it to someone who has fixed guitars. All of us, in our own way, are experts in a great many things. There's something you've done. Actually, there's a great many things you've done or seen, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of times. And you have a good grasp for that thing, even if you don't realize it, until something's amiss. This could be something as complex as someone who works on Mitsubishi motors and has seen hundreds of them and worked on hundreds of them, and when one comes through with a problem, he has a higher chance of recognizing it. If one comes through that's an anomaly, has some add-on parts or some modifications, he recognizes it. Maybe it's not something so complex. Maybe it's the sound of a squeaky hinge on the door of the place you work at. You may not know it, but you've heard that door open 10,000 times, and the day that the squeak is gone, you notice it. Maybe you work in a warehouse and you load boxes of, I don't know, cranberries all day long. And normally the boxes are of a certain weight. When you started, you couldn't tell what 35 pounds of cranberries felt like. But after the 1,000th box, you can. And when one comes through, it's a little light, you notice it. Well, it's that type of expertise that I am claiming. It's nothing grand. It's nothing to have an ego about. I'm definitely not alone. I'm sure there's countless people who've done it. And what I'm referring to is looking at Civil War photographs. I've seen thousands. And not only that, I've seen thousands of pictures of people, as many of you have. And when I'm looking at these, I'm confused. I don't understand. Something's off, right? It's like a bad joke or a poorly designed theater. The people are too young, their expressions don't make sense, awkwardly holding items, awkwardly dressed, sometimes odd poses, and these pictures flummox me. But I'm not confused anymore, because I recently looked at a whole bunch of something else, and I realized the similarities. So let's go through a few of these, and I'll show you what I mean. So I recently started fooling around with AI-generated art. It's an easy way to make some background. It's a pretty fascinating use of the technology, and sometimes it gives you some interesting results. It doesn't do letters very well. Sure, it knows how to make them, like this. This looks vaguely like a Marvel title of something, and it looks vaguely like a movie that one may have seen from that universe. But up close, the elements are not quite there. And these aren't the kind of mistakes you would make as a human being. Well, what I mean is, you may be terrible at art. You might draw something and the eyes be crooked, but you wouldn't draw something with a missing eye, would you? Nah, neither would I. No pun intended. And this one's making me work. Now let me be clear. I'm using beginner, free, for the most part, software to do this. This is something anyone can do, so meet the boys. Prepare to be very disturbed. What I mean is, I created these, this monstrosities. Well, I couldn't even say I did that. Fuck. You can say I've been a little busy creating some soldiers of my own. Actually, I don't really deserve any credit for it. I didn't really do anything except enter some prompts and sort of guide it to what I wanted it to do. So, really, this horrendous, disgusting army of misfits and cast-offs has nothing to do with me. But I am going to use it as a valuable tool here to learn what AI is and isn't capable of, what it can do and what it can't do. Keep in mind, whatever artificial intelligence that the DARPA has is going to completely outclass this in every way. What they have's got to be a million times better. I've used this stuff in the past to create funny things, backgrounds, but never really tried to create anything specific. So imagine my surprise when I learned how good it was, and also how ridiculous it was at the same time. How it definitely has its failures. For example, when I was trying to make a Mitch McConnell turtle hybrid, it failed in a rather grotesque way. Although the turtle turned out remarkably lifelike, with a few amazing exceptions. It didn't really do, I'm assuming this is some sort of a bill. It didn't really do what I wanted. They have the same temperament, it looks like. Likewise with Mrs. Isolde here in the bat I was trying to turn her into. It was making duplicates, the same person twice, as it did with the Devil's Butler here. Many times it was a failure, such as my steampunk version of Count Olaf. So if you're trying to do something like an Isolde, beast named robot, and her super hot twin sister, kind of. Or maybe you just want to see Mitch McConnell as an old woman, which I found to be highly successful. Not sure what I was doing here. It's been pure entertainment until I tried to make a Civil War soldier, and then it became disturbing. Now, I didn't prompt for this frame. I simply entered that I wanted a Civil War soldier, and I'm sure that it's pulling from the databank of the Lilyquist family collection that has this sort of frame. And so I made a number of these, and looking for patterns. And oftentimes there are some things that I noticed it did poorly. Struggles with eyes, for example. It struggles with eyes, for example. It struggles with hats. It struggles with determining where an item ends and where an item begins. So these hands become a weapon of some sort, like a magazine. His belt or strap here, it's serrated partially as it goes up and then slowly turns into a barrel of his rifle. His hat is doofy. His eyes are cross-eyed. These are, for the most part, very horrendous creatures. Amazingly lifelike at times, sure, but not. But the mistakes that they make are repeated. Rather terrifying. And it's amazing how many images would come up when I just typed Civil War scene. And these are strikingly lifelike. These were what it brought me when I entered the prompt for a Civil War fort. And you can see the lettering, it doesn't quite get it right. But very believable. Ruins of Richmond earned me these photographs, and you see the same recurring mistakes with the lettering, and you can have inconsistencies when you're talking about ruins. It's easy to, I guess, explain away. It's not so easy to explain away the rather doofy nature of some of the men renderings. These look like scarecrows, or something else, I suppose. It's unclear whether this is a gun or a walking stick, and the eyes, of course, are never quite what they should be. But some parts of it are remarkably lifelike, and so I made dozens of these. Well, actually, that's not true. I made hundreds of these. And I did this so I could see the patterns that developed. Hats were another problem area. Exhibit A and B. Peter was pissed that he'd been discovered. How'd you find me out here? Hey, get me the fuck out of here, bro. And yeah, very disturbing, some of these. Like this three-legged friend here. Often with hints of lifelike. This one just looking like a horror show. Did you say something to me? And not very believable in some regard. Sometimes kind of disturbing. But the similarities with the background of the studio, sometimes often having a difficult time discerning what was a woman and a man, seemingly can't make up its mind. At least, I don't know what these people are up to, but they sure do look guilty. What happened here? Now keep in mind, I'm not changing the prompt. I'm simply asking for Civil War soldiers, and this is what I'm getting. And as you can see, there are curiosities abound. But still, if the deception is the name of the game, and all you need is patience, you can bide your time, and eventually, rather than scarecrows, you'll get something that's passable. Keep in mind, this is a free program. Now there's some discrepancy here. The cheeks are a little too gaunt for reality, and the hat is cartoonish. This time it's having a difficulty discerning whether it's a woman or a man, and the old eyeballs are just a little too wonky. Now I'm sure you could enter better prompts and fine-tune this in a much better way and get better results. I'm sure you can. That's not the point. The point is I'm looking for patterns in the flaws. I'm not trying to trick anyone. I'm trying to see where this fails, and is there something to this theory that perhaps those soldiers are not exactly photographs. Hat funky. Here you see the strap slowly becomes like a blade or a knife of some sort, and it's just laying across his chest. So they're just things to remember. We've got some obvious eyeball discrepancy here. Shirt buttons are a little wonky, and it looks like there's a third hand coming from under his weird belt with buttons on it. It's just, this one would be a failure as well. A little confusion on what his straps do. Hands look funky. Hat looks weird. Eyes, not the same. This one is pretty good. Not too much in the way of complaints about this one. Chair doesn't really seem unevenly made, but of course there's the eyes that they just can't seem to get right. But pretty good. Buttons give it away, and the hat's ridiculous, and the strap, I guess, sort of becomes a bayonet back there? Hard to say. But rather impressive and disturbing. Here's one to remember. This pole here that's just sort of coming up from his arm, and the eyes, and the buttons. Also a little inconsistency on what exactly is the chair I guess maybe that's supposed to be the hilt of something. This gentleman's gun sort of becomes a strap, which sort of becomes buttons. Same here, strap, and the chair is uneven. This guy isn't sure what he's holding, and he looks like he sees ghosts. Very good, except for whatever's going on down here with the strap here. Complete failure, complete terror, and it looks like this guy's not doing it right. They noticed us. Fuck! I'm not really proud of my zombie army, okay? Let me just put it that way. Also, you may notice wheels where they don't belong, and wheels that are sort of half generated. I mean, these ghost armies are just creepy. Even the horses just... This one's got kind of a party hat on. This one, we got an extra eyeball here. This horse is way too fat, or his neck's way too short. Something's not right about that. And the obvious bandana face. Now, this one is pretty lifelike, though I wouldn't call it a Civil War scene. Just looks like a horror album cover. Same with this. I mean, this is the stuff of nightmares. This is more of a battle scene than we've ever seen, by the way, in actual pictures. And this guy's fingers have become a Chinese finger trap. Man, we are almost there here. Almost there. This looks more like American Revolutionary War, but still, golly, that could pass for a fake picture. This could not. Strange ridge here in his back. It's got its flaws. This one is really believable, except for the gun is far too advanced for the time. However, the more I did it, as you can see, aside from the head here, this one's pretty good. And the hands, of course, of this guy. And this one is excellent quality, except for the eyes are funky, and the gun he's holding sort of changes its mind as what it is halfway through. Now, I didn't put anything other than young soldier, young Civil War soldier. Look at him, Mom, he slipped on a nanner. This is hilarious. And the gun, knife, hybrid held together by the third hand is just perfect. This is what I want in my army. Skater boys. Only one of these guys is going to win this showdown, and I think I know who. Abject failure, Gumby hands. Eyes, though, are just not quite right. You see what I'm saying about hats and eyes and items not being really delineated very well. Guns that disappear midway, faces that aren't quite there, different uniforms on all of them, and oftentimes it produced the two in a row. And I didn't prompt for anything other than young Civil War soldier. This looks like a bow of some sort, kind of melding into the strap. Is a gun that disappears right here. Eyeball weird. These guys are effed. These guys are great. They have like combination chef hats. Whatever he's holding is a little weird. But other than that, this one turned out very good. Same prompt, by the way, Civil War soldier. This guy's gun sort of turns into like a clarinet, it looks like. Same here. We got some saxophone guns. This one's damn near perfect. Startlingly perfect. Followed right immediately after it by that monstrosity. And these Frankensteins. Now, you get two guys that look like they could be brothers. Slightly different clothing. Remember, I'm just doing this to show you what mistakes the AI makes, and we're going to see if there are those echoed in the other pictures. Hat's funny, kind of like dresses, really. Kind of can't determine if this is a male or female. Damn near perfect. A little puffy on the shoulder here, but this one as well. Except for the jumbling of the buttons. Pretty perfect. I love the banjo gun here. Great invention. I quit. I'm going to be a bluegrass player. You got no strings, Joe. Fuck you, Leonard. Not with that attitude, I don't. Very impressive, some of these. Very impressive and startling, knowing how little I put into them. Really striking and believable. I love your violin gun there, dude. Don't ever change. Weird eyes, though, and weird hat. I'm going on break. So, as you can see, this army, every now and then, spits out one that's perfect. Albeit in a random frame, different from the others. No different prompts. Randomly spitting it out. No comment for this one. No comment for you either, robot police. And your hot twin, sort of. My God. He looked like he just looked at that last picture. Like an army of scarecrows on the march. I see a scarecrows and I raise you one army of plague doctors. Suddenly the AI gets really, really good. Terrifyingly good. Except for the eye. This is in the button. This is just about perfect. It looks a little bit too modern to be in the Civil War, but I would be very hard to convince me that that wasn't a real person. This one's a little more doofy. Young Hitler at a very early age. This is a young hobo kid we found out in the alley. And on and on and on. You get these random boys, which look far too lifelike. And that kid really looks like he could just come alive and ask you for more soup any second. It's really rather startling. This is what I'm getting when I'm looking for a Civil War soldier boy. You get some misfires, but you get some that are right on. I like the nipples. It goes on and on and on. And yes, I know I've spent an ungodly amount of time doing this. Now look at this one. This one is perfect. You could easily use this. You could easily use several of these. Outstanding, really. And very eerie. Just very, very striking. And this guy's just about perfect. No rhyme or reason why it jumps from portrait to old man to hat to background to seated to war scene. There's really no rhyme or reason to it. It's just picture after picture of Civil War possibilities. Personally, I'd put my army against the one that's in that picture, that family album, any day. My army of ghouls and zombies and rather competent looking old men. This is a real eye-opener for me, and these are all created by me in the past 2 or 3 days. I mean, I shouldn't say created by me, I didn't really do anything, but... So, in the search for patterns, this is our control group, I guess, and I mean, look at that, just so lifelike. It's really baffling. Even more lifelike than the Mitch McConnell old woman. It randomly gave me a woman, which life is like that sometimes, and this one ain't taking no guff, so, you better be home for dinner. Or she will be on the march. And the lifelike detail is startling. This one randomly gave me a colored one, by the way. I don't know. It just takes these liberties sometimes. And sometimes inserts a Dark Lord into the midst. It randomly switched to war scenes, depictions of battles, the same ghouls. Like 99% of the picture is accurate. It's just a few things that it doesn't do very well. And I'm grateful in a way that it doesn't do them very well because it would even be more confusing. With this little 1% flaw it seems we have. Yeesh. Yeah, I'm not really proud of my army. It's more like a tolerance that I have for them. For the most part, they are pretty. This one, can't tell if it's a man or a woman, which seems to be common for current times. I don't know. That guy, you've been immediately relieved of command, just based on your looks. I'm sorry. Your mouth, sir, is far too obscene for this army. We do have some standards. After all, we are an army of sorts. Glitchy, just the way I like it. None of these men are very, very trustworthy. Wow, that one's good. That one's real good. That's a caper. 1 out of 1,000 seems about right to me. You guys go home. Your part in this battle is done. Take your ghoul army with you. Now let's take a look at what they tell us are the real Civil War soldier photographs. And you can decide for yourself if I'm just tripping or is there something fucky going on. Keep in mind, this is a million times better than probably what I've done, allegedly. To my mind, the eyes look different, and the hat has an unnecessary poof on it. Maybe that's normal. Odd way to hold a gun at your friend's head, but even more odd would be the eyes here. Kind of hard to tell the resolution, but those eyes don't look really normal to me, and here neither. Not sure what's going on there. Not sure why you would hold a tiny gun like that when you have one right here. Seems like a very inhuman mistake to make. Interesting way to store that. See those eyes. A little explaining to do. Gold pinky ring seems to be a recurring theme. I didn't know it was fashionable at the time. Interesting way to store those things. Even more interesting are the eyes here. Weird disappearing bayonet. Weird hat. Even weirder eyes. I wonder if everyone back in the day had one eye that was bigger than the other, or wore a knife situated so strangely on their belt. I didn't cherry pick these. I'm just going through these as they are. Here we are with the double scene that it creates, where they look like they could be brothers, except for a few different things. Let's see, it looks like there's like a flag here or something that goes in front of him, but it didn't render possibly all the way. A very strange pose. Terrible looking belt buckle. Kind of confusing what his thumb's doing here. A stretched out thumb here, but maybe I'm looking at it wrong. It's hard to believe these are photographs, huh? Pinky ring. Do those look the same to you? Most ridiculous glasses I've ever seen. Is that gun even real? What? That is the tiniest little pea shooter. It looks so ridiculous. Okay. This is a lieutenant, huh? This guy. Some long fingers on that boy. Really? Is that all you're going to battle with, soldier? Interesting eyeball there. You as well. Seem to have a rather large eyeball in one half, don't you? Where have I seen that before? Where indeed have I seen that before? Interesting way to hold that gun. I don't believe I've seen a rifle with that mechanism in these days. This is the musket era, wasn't it? Now, clearly what I'm implying is that these pictures are not pictures of people. They share way too many abnormalities. Fluctuations in age, fluctuations in uniform, yet all came together for this photo shoot. The eyes are a dead giveaway. You are welcome to form your own opinion, of course, as ever. I'm simply posing the probability. Rather terrifying. Are we in a simulation? Is everything that we know about our past generated? Seems to me, based on these pictures at least, that there is something going on. Now, maybe I've taken it way too far. Maybe these are a prank. Maybe the Lilyquist family has pulled one over on the general public. It's possible. What's not possible is that these pictures are of real people. I mean, the idea that you can just run around the 90s and 150 years after the conflict and find all these portraits. Just have to have so cohesive, elements. Jesus, is one thing. And how we haven't noticed this sooner is kind of an embarrassment. Now, these are just random ones that I actually haven't even looked at until just now. I have not looked at these. I want to come in with too many preconceived ideas, and that is ridiculous. Wow, it's bad. What? There's a few that stand out in my mind. I love that. Okay, and then you see ones like this, right? Which, oddly enough, I had not seen that before. Let's go back here. Because randomly, in my army, the same sort of thing happened. Where I got this guy out of nowhere. Just once. Just a weird anomaly. So, yet again, the randomness strikes. And it just seems like the mistakes are too similar. These young people shouldn't be doing this hidden hand crap. You can also take a picture and say, make more like it, or use this as a model. I haven't done that. I haven't needed to. These were too similar as it was. And besides, I was looking for the flaws. I was looking for the failures. I wasn't trying to make anything perfect. They were. And this is as good as they can get. I mean, how they didn't notice that these eyes are all completely different. They probably did. They didn't think we'd notice, I guess. For the most part, I guess they were right. That can't function as a gun. That can't be real. Yeah. This looks like that Professor Dave jackass. A fake professor. Bits of strangeness with the knife here. Bits of strangeness when it comes to what exactly they're holding. What is this? And why does it end right here? Interesting eyes and hat. Seems to be some confusion here as to what exactly he is holding. Never seen a gun with that sort of ending. Weird plug in it or something. Does anyone think this is the photograph? Awkward hands, not holding anything that we can see. Interesting eye there. Is that a star and crescent? Or just an unfinished badge? This gun appears to be made of wood. I don't see how that's real. Why would you be holding it like that? Why she's holding an apple? Here's one where the strap appears to be one with the gun. Here it seems to sort of meld together. A very strange way to hold a gun and knife. So what am I getting at here? Rather cartoony, don't you think? Very strangely disproportionate. Interesting eyes. So what am I getting at here? It's not obvious by now. These pictures aren't real. These pictures are AI. And that's what's wrong with them. That's why the clothing doesn't match. That's why the poses are strange. That's why the hands are strange. That's why they don't look real. Is that a button on the gun? The weird gold chain hanging from it? I'm kind of embarrassed that we haven't noticed before. Because these aren't the kind of mistakes that normal people make. These are all things that just so happen to be the same exact way that the AI creates it. Can't decide if it's a woman or a man. Blouse with a knife. Proportions all wrong. Items stored strangely. Cartoony look. But 1 out of every 1,000 is good enough to pull off. It just so happens to be how many this family claimed to donate. Not sure what's going on with the top of his rifle here. It's heart-sinking, really, to realize the implications of this. But it is the only thing I can see that makes sense. And that's why the gut feeling tells you something's not right with these pictures. Something's not right. They're not pictures of people. Is this how you would pose on picture day? Sometimes the backgrounds are real, sometimes they're drawn in, lifelike, sometimes they're cartoonish, sometimes they have a stand behind them, sometimes they don't. These are things, all repeating patterns that I saw over and over again with the AI generator. They always tell us that they're about 30 years ahead of us anyway. DARPA's been pouring money into it since the 80s. Throw some spatters on it here, make it look aged, you don't notice the eye. And what's going down here is very interesting. See right here, he's holding a pistol that comes up here, here's the hammer, and it ends right here. But the AI can't tell the difference really, so it extends the barrel. See the barrel, this barrel ends here. You see the actual gun he's holding here. The AI can't make up its mind. So you got your first one here, roughly. It's a kind of end like this, like a curved revolver. Then you got the second one out here. That's a long gun. It's subtle, but I think it's there. You can see the ending of one right here. And that's exactly the kind of mistake that an AI would make. Is this how you would store your gun? Would any soldier store their gun that way? How about that hat? Look familiar? These are official pictures. What kind of hat is that? Do you see? Does this look like a photograph to you of a human being? That look normal to you? I'd like a portrait of a Civil War vet. 1 out of every 1,000, you're probably going to get someone holding a portrait of a Civil War vet. And this one might just be the most revealing yet. Little soldier boy, huh? See, he's holding the gun here. He's cupping the stock of the gun. The gun goes up, right? Here's the hammer, the apparatus. Gun goes up. Nope, it's just a pole. Of course, it's a little pole. Because a little guy like this wouldn't have a gun, would he? What's he holding then? Soldier boy. They probably asked for a soldier boy, and the AI gave him this. How does anyone not notice that he's not holding a gun there? A human being wouldn't make that mistake. And if there are humans that approve these, I find that to be shocking as well. Almost there, but not quite. Can't tell me there's this many people with those kind of eyes in the fucking army. Is this how you would hold your gun? In the 1860s? Just pointed right at your dick? What's this? Does that look natural? How about this? Where have we seen this before? AI. How many guns do you need? And again, you get pointed at your dick. I mean, no soldier. I would like to think no man in general would do such a thing. So you see, the riddle is solved, in a way. These aren't real people. They're not posing. This is a combination boy-man with, again, a disappearing weapon, and it goes on. And it's actually kind of embarrassing that we fell for this stuff. But I think it's one of those situations where it's like, I mean, look, they can't tell this is a woman or a man. Look at, he's got a dress on. Tassels are missing over here, bud. And this one was probably perfect, just about, except for the fact he's pointing a gun at himself and holding a knife at the same time. This one just showcases the dishonesty right here. So here's got the gun in one hand, the rifle. Look at this. If you look closer, he's got a knife and a gun in the same hand. Not only that, but you see how they acted as if something was spilled on this picture? But if you look closer, you can see it's because the eye is obscenely large. You see? These are not real. Horse and rider standing out from the background. This guy's hat, I don't know, it's made of plastic, but the chair turns into his bedroll. That's not his bedroll. What are these straps for? This is a tough pill to swallow. I understand. And I also understand that you may not believe me right now. So go ahead and look at on your own time. We all know there's something wrong with these. We all know these are not pictures of Civil War soldiers, much less pictures at all. And now we know how they did it. Now, either this family pulled one over on the Library of Congress. It's possible. This family pulled one over on them. I mean, look at the hat. It's just... And submitted all these fake pictures. You remember the ones of the AI that gave me two that were very similar? You get the same story here. Very similar, but slightly different. Just like the AI. So that's how they did it. That's why some of the stuff looks like drawings. That's why their props are weird. That's why their weapons disappear into thin air, because they're not real. Just like everything else about this conflict. Now the question remains, why would you fake it? Why don't you just say we don't have any pictures? They say they don't have pictures of the Franco-Prussian War, after all. They say they don't have pictures of... They admit they don't have all kinds of pictures. Why not do the same here? Well, like I said, that family is pulling a hoax on them. But more likely, they need the idea of this conflict. They need this for some reason. And the only thing I can think of is to sow division. So I, of course, find this to be very disturbing. Look at the eye. Disturbing that I didn't figure it out the first time. Disturbing that they had this method and were able to use it 20 years ago. And who knows this? And why? And why they felt the need to put these out there. And I'm sure if they get caught, they can just say the family played a hoax. But it's not just these pictures now, is it? How about this picture? I couldn't figure out why there were tiny miniature little walls inside this room. Now I know. Because AI did this. Why the dead men looked so odd, as if they were misshapen, or had legs that were coming out of legs, these strange forms. Or why the cannonballs didn't fit, or why they'd be randomly stacked up in pyramids, or why none of the proportions of the people made sense. All of this random stuff we've accredited to bad photography. Well, we were wrong. It wasn't photography at all. Does this mean that everything we've ever seen on a screen could potentially be fake? Maybe. Does it mean that our enemy isn't organic? Does it mean that it's literally an alien being and we are really trapped in a simulation? Remember when I couldn't figure these generals' eyes out? Makes sense now. So these men weren't real either. So what was real? And I really don't know. I didn't want to believe this. I still don't want to believe it. But I don't see a way out right now. What of all the paintings? Are they to be examined? Are we to believe that they're fake as well? Maybe it's just a technique used by humans. It could mean a lot of things. And it's a fresh discovery, and I'm still mulling it over, and I don't know what to think. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, and I'll keep exploring, and we'll see where it leads. So I'll see you. Wait for it. Where'd it go?